So for BFD Rental is focused on analog desks. And that has to do not only with the stuff being analog, but also with the sound that we want to get people to know and to play around with. I would be really curious to put this one next to a few of our analog friends in the family. And it doesn't feel weird to have it next to it. So that from a company that's focused on analog is already saying quite a lot. But the only thing I could say, would I get one of these desks in my company, would to put one next to each other and see how it works for me, although being digital and not the focus of my company. But I'm enticed. First off, what I like about it is how it just feels. It's just a solid build, buttons are fine, very responsive.
The console is kind of split into configuration and then workflows. Now these workflows are just essentially different layouts of the same thing depending on what you like.
Okay.
And then we have the selected input and the selected output widget. In this view, this was requested by a customer and we did it, which is just one big view of the selected channel.
Yeah, or auxiliary or output or
Mancino, the quick ethos of this is essentially it's a multi-editing function. So I can select those first 8 and relatively tweak the EQ on each of them. We have post-fader inserts now as well. Obviously we've got an array of effects that we're all constantly adding to.
So first impressions, I'm really liking this. It feels very upfront, so it's accessible. You do have to get your way around, but I think any digital console with a specific UI gives you that moment that you have to get used to. It's organized in a way that feels very natural to me, and it's based on what we've seen in other consoles from Midas. Having a quick listen to what we did on a digital input, listening to some vocals and listening to some drums and sounds. I like the way that the EQ is very directly accessible and it does what you want it to do. Like we talked about earlier, if you touch an analog desk and you play around with the EQ, you kind of know where you are and it kind of feels like that. As you guys pointed out, please have a go on the touchscreen, which for me is very, very weird to do, but I really enjoy it. It's very responsive and that it goes for the overall platform. So I'm really curious to have this one under my fingers in a live situation where we've got preamps and a lot more going. I think some of the innovations that you've put into it will really make the life of engineers easier and quicker. I think you've listened to a lot of the questions and requests that came out from the field and tried to take that into the new console. And yeah, looking forward. I think even our little mammoth is enthusiastic. So cool, props. I think the HD gives you a lot of visual feedback, and for a lot of engineers, especially that didn't grow up doing analog, this will feel very familiar and it will have no threshold of using it. So if you talk about how the desk is set up from a physical perspective and how it's being laid out with quite a large screen, which is balanced well in the design, I think for me it's super light. You know, I could lift this on my own, which is good, which I can't with my own desks. For the rest, it feels everything is compact and close to each other. Everything is accessible. I like it. It's good. It feels solid again. Everything felt, for me, fluid and reactive and responsive, going through menus, switching windows. That all works, for me, it works very direct and fine. So no glitches on this end, and I expect to have very little in the future as well. Desk feels sturdy. The buttons, the knobs, the faders, everything feels good. It feels, again, if you touch something, you want to feel that there's a certain natural weight to it. Pop meters, they feel very nice. They've got like a little bit of slip on it that makes it feel a little bit more heavy. And the overall build quality, it's clean, it's a clean look. And I like it. So again, we've been going through effects quickly and just scratching the surface. And with the collection that you give, there's a broad palette of effects that you give the users. As your colleague pointed out, so friendly to me to have a look at the VSS4, which is a beauty and sounds really, really nice. So good going. I think anyone should be able to get a really decent mix going on this. If you can't, switch your job. I think form factor versus analog is, of course, the main difference, and controllability, recallability, and carrying the amount of channels that this desk can handle. My truck will break before I get all the analog stuff in that truck to do the same thing as this machine can do. I think recallability, switching between acts on a festival setting, for instance, it makes your life a lot easier, although doing it on analog is absolutely not impossible. You do have a lot more power, you're quicker to move around, and if one of the features from this desk would be available on my analog desk, it would be storing full sets of data. That would be the feature that I would take from this one and dump in my XL4 and H4, that would be great. But form factor and functionality, it's a powerful machine. Putting one next to a member of our analog family would be really interesting, and I think I might even be triggered to get my hands on more of the buttons.